Welcome to the Centre for Legal Innovation's Legal Techy Tuesday series. We are very excited to have Amy Burton, Managing Lawyer at Everyday Justice, here with us today. Amy will be demonstrating Everyday Justice's client intake process. Again, welcome. Fabulous to have you all here. And now over to Amy.
Hi there, I'm Amy. I'm the Managing Lawyer of Everyday Justice, and thanks for joining us today. I thought I would start by explaining who we are at Everyday Justice, what we do, what our team looks like, and then move on to what we're using to make our services as efficient as they possibly can be. Now, Everyday Justice has been operating since the 11th of January of this year. We set up in partnership with Mills Oakley and with the College of Law. And so what we are is we've been registered in New South Wales as a community legal service rather than a community legal centre. And that's because we are owned and funded by Mills Oakley. We're essentially the pro bono arm of Mills Oakley, but we are a separate legal entity. What we do is we operate full-time as a national free legal service. We provide free legal services to people who aren't eligible for legal aid or can't access legal aid for whatever reason, and can't get the help they need from other free legal services like community legal centres, and that might be because it's a practice area that community legal centres can't assist with, or the matter's urgent and for whatever reason they can't get the assistance that they need. But how our service works is that we will ask clients up front whether they have accessed those services already, because we think it's important to prioritise government funded services, especially for their ongoing funding purposes. And so what we do is our aim is to provide as much on the spot phone advice as possible, and we will provide phone advice in a range of different practice areas, which we've got listed up here. So employment law, tenancy, credit and debt, financial abuse, fines and infringements, human rights, climate change, public interest law. Human rights and public interest law categories are, I guess, our catch-all categories if something else doesn't fit neatly within our practice areas. There are some matters that we can't assist with, and that's family law, criminal law, immigration, property, Centrelink, NDIS, and workers' compensation. They're the ones we definitely can't assist with. Anything that's not mentioned, we might be able to assist with on a case-by-case basis. So clients can call us or go on our chatbot, which I'll show you soon, and basically they lodge an inquiry to see whether we can assist them. And we will always call a client back to do what we call an initial client intake. And then we will assess after conducting conflict checks and looking through the facts of a matter, whether we can provide phone legal advice to a client. And often that's where our engagement with a client ends. So, we may have 2, 3, 4 back and forth interactions with them over the phone and by email before we've got all the information we need to be able to give them the advice they need, and they can continue with their matter, or we can refer them on to other services. If we feel that a client needs some further assistance, then we can go up to our next level, which we call limited representation, and that's where we're providing unbundled, limited assistance in a matter. For example, we assist many small businesses. Often they're experiencing issues with their landlords, particularly due to rent issues during COVID lockdowns, particularly in Victoria. So we might agree to write a letter to a landlord. It might be a dispute about rent arrears, how much was waived versus how much was deferred, and we can put that in a letter for a client. worded as if it was written by the client, or we might make a decision to put it on our letterhead, depending on the circumstances. We might help a client draft documents for court, for NCAT or VCAT. We might even assist a client to draft an email letter of demand to someone who owes them money. And so that's what falls in our limited representation category. And then the highest level up is our full legal rep, which is where we take on a matter full time. We don't take on a lot of matters full time at the moment, given that we're a new legal service, and we're obviously still finding our feet, and we've been experiencing a high level of demand. So we tend to focus on the phone legal advice and the limited rep, but we have had about 6 matters full rep so far, and we've had a few matters in the Land and Environment Court, the Supreme Court, Children's Court in Brisbane. So it's been a real mix, and if anyone does need full legal rep assistance, then please don't be put off by us saying we don't take them on very often. We'll be happy to consider all matters, provided they fit within our practice areas. Now, our team is made up of, we're quite a small team. So I've got myself and Lauren, and we're both based in Sydney. We live within the Mills Oakley office in Sydney. And then we are very grateful for the support of the College of Law and their PLT students, and they make up the rest of our staff. They do voluntary internships with us to meet their work experience requirements through the PLT program. We have interns all around Australia, and they work out of the Mills Oakley offices in each of our interstate offices. So we've obviously got Sydney, where we can have up to 4 interns at a time, Brisbane, where we can have 2 interns, Melbourne, where we can have 2 interns, Perth and Canberra, we can have 1 intern at the moment. Most of our interns do between 2 and 3 days a week, so that they, mainly 2 days a week, so that they can complete their PLT coursework at the same time. And they get involved in client intake, helping with legal research, listening to us provide advice to clients, helping us draft documents for clients, you name it, they assist in all of it. And so obviously, rather than start small, we've really gone straight at it, which I'm very aware of every day when we see the number of intakes that we get. But from the outset, we were really conscious that we needed to make sure we had systems in place to be as efficient as possible in the way that we do client intake, because myself and Lauren, we've both had experience working for pro bono legal services before. I came from Salvo's Legal and Lauren from Legal Aid. So we knew that we needed a system or systems that could make sure that we were able to process client intake as quickly as possible, so that we could spend more FaceTime or phone time with clients, get their matter resolved as quickly as possible. So after much research and speaking to other similar services, we ended up signing up with Action Step for our practice management software, and with the team at Joseph Legal for our client intake bot and a number of back-end bots that we've got operating as well. And so today I thought I would show you how these systems work. And I think the important thing to emphasize is that Lauren and I both admit that neither of us are particularly techie, so we needed something that we could work with that was going to be Amy and Lauren friendly, and also something that for our interns who are interested in legal tech, they could get stuck into it as well. So what we've got operating at the moment is what we've started with, and I'm sure that over time it'll morph and evolve. But for now, and I guess for anyone listening who is in the startup phase of a legal service, whether it's fee paying or otherwise. I thought it would be interesting for you to see that this is how we've started, and maybe you're welcome to speak to me about how it might work for your startup service, if that's what you're looking at too. We were obviously keen to be quite lean in the outset, so we wanted to find systems that weren't only efficient but also affordable, and Josephine actions that really fit the bill for us. So what I'll start with is I'll change my screen over now, and I'll share our website. So you can now see the Everyday Justice website. We've tried to keep it as straightforward as possible, just so that clients can really understand the types of matters we assist with. And what we've done at the top is we've got a Get Help Now banner. And when clients go to this is when they meet our Joseph Legal bot, which I'll show you the back end after I've showed you how it operates. But basically, we built this chat with the support of the Joseph Legal system, so that when clients have a legal issue, they can either call us on our 1-800 number, or preferably they can go on to this client intake chatbot. And we have changed the wording of this a number of times, wanting it to be not too word heavy, but also wanting it to cover everything it needs to cover. So if anyone, when we're going through this, has any suggestions for how you think we might want to change it, then I'd be keen to hear. But this is what we've got at the moment, and it's I can show you at the back end how we change things, but it's really straightforward. Once it's on the website, you don't need to keep changing the website to be able to change the bot at all. You basically press a button and it updates. But basically, clients are met with an intro about what we can and can't assist with, that it takes about 10 minutes to go through our chatbot. We ask them what sort of legal issue they have. And I know that this can be a tricky question for people who don't have a full understanding of what the law is, what their legal issue is. And I know that there's been a lot of research into how people identify their legal issues, but I guess we've got to start somewhere to get some sort of understanding of what a client's experiencing. And most people have been able to answer this question quite well as to what their legal issue is, or if they don't know, they can press other, I don't know, I have multiple legal issues. We also have an option if clients don't want to continue the chat. But for now, we'll start with an employment law matter. Now we ask clients if they can just explain a little bit more about their legal issue. And so I guess what we've had quite commonly is, I want to know how to get paid my full wage. We've had quite a few wage theft matters. Now, we then tell clients that we need their details. And we used to have this later on in the chat, but we found that some people, for whatever reason, wouldn't get all the way through the chat. And then they would find our email address and say, why didn't you ever call me? And that's because we never got to the point of asking them for their details. So we thought it would be better to get the information we need to be able to contact them at the start. So we'll go here, enter in their information, phone number. So if we go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is there another, and obviously to help us with conflict checks, we ask if there is another party involved. Yes, we can say, we'll say Mills Oakley because that's where we are. It asks for the last name, so not applicable. Have you spoken, and this is where we screen whether clients have spoken to Legal Aid or a community legal centre, and most people are quite upfront about that. We asked them what they were told. Live in the, you know, we can just make something up. Are you currently working? So then we ask a bit about the work that they do, whether they're employed part-time or casual, Centrelink, JobKeeper, and then we'll say how much does someone earn. And in terms of, and what I should have mentioned earlier, in terms of our means testing for phone advice, we are keeping it quite broad at the moment, because we understand that even if someone puts down on paper that they're earning $1,000 a week, they might have other debts that they need to pay. They might have a large mortgage. They might be in family law proceedings where they don't actually have access to all their money. They might be a small business where they've been in lockdown for the last year, and they actually, you know, they've got that money coming in now, but they haven't had money coming in for the whole last year. So we'd like to get a snapshot of what the household incomes are of the people we're speaking to, so that we can put together some research down the track somewhere as to what sort of people are coming to speak to us. But for now, we will provide phone advice to people regardless of what they're making. But in terms of being able to provide limited assistance or full rep, then that's when we will really focus in more on, you know, is this someone who could be able to afford a lawyer? Could we refer them, for example, to one of the many low-cost legal services that have opened up over the last few years, rather than a traditional law firm? So we've got quite a comprehensive referral list of lawyers that we can send people to if it does appear that they might be able to pay for some legal assistance if they need ongoing help. But I thought I'd mention that now. Also, if people have dependents, then that can really affect, they might have 5 people living with them. Now we ask dates of birth, email address, and that's handy if we need to send things to clients. We correspond with clients a lot via email. I'm just putting up our office address. And here the client has reached the point where we've made it clear that they're eligible to at least have a client intake with us. If I had selected back up here that someone had a immigration matter, for example, it would have taken them through a different process, and I can show you that. But for this client, they've been told that we will contact them within the next 3 business days. Often it's the same day. We have about 6 interns a day with us, and so we're pretty good at getting back to people to at least do the initial client intake. It's then, if we need to provide advice, if it's an issue that's quite complex, and even factoring in our conflict checks that need to be conducted within Everyday Justice and then within Mills Oakley, it probably takes about a week for us to get back to someone with advice about their matter, unless they're flagged that it's urgent, in which case we will do our best to be able to assist someone, assuming it's a matter we can assist with limited rep or otherwise. We've had a lot of small businesses in Victoria who have received notices to vacate, so they might contact us on a Tuesday midday and you'll be told that they've got to vacate by the next morning. And with the wonderful assistance of the Victorian Small Business Commission, we've been able to help in those matters. So we will do what we can. and we will always be very clear with clients about what we can and can't do. Now, if I start this chat again, but let's say a client says that they have a matter in immigration, then it will automatically say that we can't assist. Now, what we would like to do in the future is then prompt to a window with a list of some services that can assist. We haven't got to that point with our bot yet, but we will do. But I have had a number of clients get to this message, and then they see that our phone number comes up and our email address, and we have had people say, look, I really need some referrals in this space. And so people have been quite proactive at asking for referrals, and we will pass them on. It's just that if we do create a new tree where people specify immigration or Centrelink or NDIS matters, we will then need to ask them what state they're in to be able to give referrals. So we're still figuring that out, but for now, this is what we've got. Similarly, if someone says that they haven't been to legal aid or a community legal centre, then the messages on the chatbot, I will show you. It'll say, okay, let's say credit and debt. And then if they say, no, not yet, in terms of this is going to legal aid, we say that they may be able to get free legal assistance. We recommend that they contact those services. They still have an option to continue the chat, but we'll have it noted that they haven't been to legal aid or to a community legal centre, and that'll be one of the first things that we talk to them about over the phone to find out the reasoning. Otherwise, they can select okay. And then we let them know that if they can't get that assistance, then to let us know. Now, what happens, I'm going to shift to the back end, and this is our Joseph bot back end. And so what happens when someone comes in, and as you'll see, we've had 467 interactions so far with people using our intake bot, which is wonderful to see. We haven't got any details that come up when people enter their details, because there's a few options with how the bot works. If you want to specify that someone needs to put in their full name in the bot rather than just type a general response in, then there's more scope for there to be errors. Same with email addresses. If someone doesn't put the @ right or type an email address in the form that it should look like, then they may get an error message with Joseph, or they might have issues. So we've kept it really broad in the way that people can enter data in, or they can say, I don't have an email address. And so with the Joseph backend, we don't get the alerts in the same way as other people might, where it will have the full name and the email address. We can have that if we wanted to, but for now we've chosen to keep it like this. I will add that as soon as an intake comes through, it goes into the back end of the Joseph bot, but we also get sent an email. We then forward those emails to our interns, and that email comes up with all the data that the client has entered, including their contact details. And so all we need to do is forward it to an intern and say, can you please call this client to do intake? But what you'll see here is that all the data has come up for that intake. And then I can download that record if I like. But because it gets emailed to me, and that's as simple as I get an intake that says someone has used the client intake, or someone would prefer to speak on the phone, and it sends that email through to me and Lauren. So that's how that works. Now, another thing that you might be interested to see is that the way that the intake work, the way that developing the Joseph bot works is that there's this whole tree, and we had to develop questions that go in the tree. And so you'll see what I meant earlier when I said, okay, someone goes to legal aid. If they say, yes, I spoke to legal aid, then it will go to the next question of work. No, I haven't spoken to legal aid. It can send them to work if they answer to say that they would like to continue the chat. Otherwise, it'll come up with the final message on legal aid. And anytime that there's an orange flag, that's when the chat ends. And we have a few of those. If it's a practice area we can't assist with, like the one you saw with immigration, then similarly, it'll say, we'll give the feedback. Or if someone doesn't want to continue the chat right at the start, they've found that for whatever reason, they might have run out of time, or this isn't what they were looking for. They were just looking through our website and they got to this page, then they can end the chat. Most people just finish it without pressing that button. Or if someone wants to speak on the phone, then they can click on that and we will call them. And so then the thanks message at the end, the way that we entered all this information in was much more straightforward. So we basically built the chat. So we typed in all the details, and then you come up with messages, and then you'll see here that how the message connects to the next part, and then it connects up. And Joseph Legal were wonderful at walking me through their system before we started using the service to explain how everything worked. I got the Mills Oakley IT team involved, and they were fascinated by it all, and we had a great time building bots. We've got some back-end ones as well. So our interns, we have an exit survey. So whenever an intern finishes, this is how we do, rather than sending them an email, we have questions that they ask, it goes into the system, and then we have it all in one place. Similarly, if people apply for an internship with Everyday Justice, we'll send them through a link to a bot so that it asks them more questions about the amount of days that they like to get involved, the office that they're applying for, their preferred days, when they'd like to start, and we have all that on record. So if we're ever looking for a New South Wales intern, for example, we go there, change the field so that we see all the New South Wales applicants, see the number of people who are available on certain days, and that makes our intake of intern process very straightforward. Now, the next step for us, and this is what's so wonderful about how we've got our systems working, is that once people go into the Joseph bot, we see it at the back end, but it also sends through to action step. So this is our action step system. And we'll see. We should have someone called Julie popping up. No. No, of course we wouldn't. What we do is so what we've got is we'll get an alert through our web form submissions. One has been submitted today. And so what happens is, this is the information that came through from the client on Joseph earlier today. And so what happens is that once someone uses the Joseph bot, they then go on, that web form then gets sent to Action Step, our practice management software system. So rather than us having to enter all the details in manually, we can just review this intake record that we've received, and then we'll press process. And then it will go through and it will set up a new contact for, firstly, the other party. We're going to skip that contact for now. and then all the details for Julie Bloggs, who's come in. Now, we can add in extra information later about employer, citizenship, anything, occupation, anything that comes up that's relevant. But basically what it does is it saves us the time of entering in all of this manual information. And we can specify who the person is. And we'll check that that's correct. So with Action Step, what you do is you enter a client and then you enter the matter separately. So what we have here, we will have Bloggs Julie, and we will, that will be, and we do employment, that'll be assigned to me, has her as the client, has, and then this is when the extra information that has come through Action Step appears. They're currently working, what they do for work, the cafe worker, estimated weekly household income, that all comes up here. And then what we can do is we can create the matter. And so this has made life incredibly easy for us, because then we have our Action Step matter entered. We have all of the details. We can enter file notes here. We can go into our emails and save emails very easily. Basically press of a button, and any documents that the client has sent through. So it's a very, it's making our life easier. We've found that it's really quite straightforward to make amendments to the Joseph bot. Really easy to enter client data into Action Step, and it's taken us I don't know, about half an hour to train our interns how to get their heads around Action Step, which makes for a great induction process, because our interns can quite quickly jump straight into things. All right, now I'm going to switch back over to our screen.
Thank you, Amy, for a very informative demonstration. It is really interesting to see how Everyday Justice is helping people access legal services who can't afford a private lawyer without incurring substantial financial hardship, and how using platforms and software like Joseph and Action Step is helping to assist the client intake process. So if there aren't any questions, we will draw to a close. If anyone has any questions for Amy after the session, she can be contacted on the details on the screen. A huge thank you to all of you who have attended today. As you know, the Centre for Legal Innovation is very much focused on these types of webinars, this type of information sharing, collaboration and experience exchange. We're all about practical solutions. There will be many more webinars coming up in the Legal Techie Tuesday series, so don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter or Facebook for announcements. We look forward to welcoming you back to one of our events, and thank you again very much for joining us today. Thank you, Amy, for a great session.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.